So I'm here today to have a chat with Rohan Jenner of RKJ Fishing. Very pleased to meet you, Rohan. It's been a long time.
Thanks, Frank.
I've been following your videos for quite some time. I love your style of video, and thanks for agreeing to have yourself put under the microscope.
No problem, mate.
Firstly, how did you get involved in fishing?
My dad used to take me from when I was very young down to the sandbars on the Murray River. We used to catch an occasional carp. It wasn't the most exciting things I can remember, but my love of it started there. In my teenage years I sort of stopped fishing for a bit, and I got back into it after I had kids actually. It wasn't that I was taking my kids fishing, it's just, I don't know, I just really got back into it then, and since then I've been hammering it out a lot.
Yes, well, you clearly enjoy it. Do
Yes.
your family fish as well?
My dad is a keen fisherman, or he was, he still does from time to time when he can. That's about it in my family, really.
I reckon I do remember one video that you did where you tested some water shoes and you all went down to the lake and threw lures around for redfin.
Yeah, that's right. That's one of my attempts to get my kids more into fishing. We tried that again recently, actually. A couple of weeks ago we went over to the basin and my daughter unfortunately got a hook stuck in the side, and she's decided she doesn't like fishing anymore. So we'll have to wait till next time we go out to try again.
Yes, I tried with my kids. I took them to a trout farm, and one of my daughters in particular thought it was pretty good, and she was pulling them out one after another. The trouble is you've got to pay for them.
Oh,
So I had to slow her down.
yeah.
How often are you able to get out and go fishing, or how often do you try and get out and go fishing?
I'd like to get out every day for at least a couple of hours. And a few years ago I was able to do that. I had a good run circumstances. I was getting a lot of enjoyment out of my fishing, a lot of content as well for YouTube. My wife came down with a medical condition about a year and a half ago, and my fishing time and YouTube time has been limited because of that. So I guess the safe answer is not enough, because even if I'm fishing a lot, it's still not enough.
No.
But I still get out as often as I can, which is 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah. Fishing's a bit of a disease in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the most expensive way you can get dinner for free.
Let me think about that. Gotcha. So how did you get involved in doing YouTube videos?
Well, I was very early on the YouTube bandwagon back in, I think they started in 03, 04, and I probably started following people on YouTube as creators since about 2005. So it's always been a passion of mine to replicate what these creators were doing, because they're, it's obvious that they're just a person living their life at home, whether they're playing video games or fishing or whatever. And I wanted to get into YouTube. There was a lot of different things. I wanted to try gaming, I wanted to try a few different other things that I'm interested in, but fishing, I found Robbie's fishing channel, Robbie Fishing on YouTube. I found him in about 2015 or so, and that thought made me just stop and go, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And so while I've always been inspired by content creators on YouTube for as long as it's existed, I think it was seeing Robbie and what he does with his channel that made me think, okay, I want to go try this.
So where do you see your channel going from here? Because at the moment you've got, I think, about 7,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
Or just over 7,000.
Yeah.
Is it an aim for you to build up your subscriber numbers, or is it just whatever happens?
Yeah, it's sort of whatever happens is the way I look at it, because the original reason I started the YouTube channel wasn't to have people watching my videos necessarily. It was so I could record what I've done, which is a memory for myself as well, because I can go back and watch them later. And what better form of a memory than a video? That's the reason I started, and then people started following me. I thought, oh wow, what's going on here? People are liking it, and that inspired me to push a bit harder. In terms of future, I would like to keep putting up at least 1 or 2 videos a week, ideally. And in terms of growth, that's the whatever happens part, because that's something beyond our control, that just we just do what we do and it happens in the background.
Yes, well, considering that Robbie's, from memory, about 66,000, you've got 7,000 and I've got 584.
Yeah. They're all numbers.
Yes, they're all numbers. Oh dear. It's obvious that you get a lot of enjoyment from catching any fish, but you must have a favourite species and a favourite type of fishing that you like doing.
I think my favourite type of fishing is lure fishing for natives. It's probably the most difficult form of fishing I do as well, so it is more of a challenge. but that makes it that much more rewarding when you've walked a couple of kilometres and it's a hard morning and then you catch a nice cod or a yellow belly on the lure. That's probably my favourite. There's no better rush for me than hooking a fish in that, because half the time you're not even ready because you've just been casting and casting for so long, and then something hooks up.
Yeah. What about that fish in your intro where you actually just dangled the lure in the water and he came up and smashed it?
Oh, that one, yes. That was on a retrieve, actually. I cast to the other side of a skinny bit of water and I brought it back, and the camera cut off, but I lifted the lure out of the water about half a foot and I looked down and saw it, and I've just lowered it back down, and that's when I realised the camera wasn't looking and I've looked down. So the lure's sitting there when you see it. But he was just watching it as it was suspended out of the water, and I dropped it down and he just looked harder, gave it a couple of twitches and he took it. That was a magic moment.
That was an amazing bit of footage.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No, I loved that. It was a surface lure on a surface take on a diving lure right at my feet. Couldn't have asked for anything better.
Tick, 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 tick.
Yeah.
Most of your videos show you fishing alone. Is that a preference or is it just a matter of convenience?
A bit of both. I think preferentially I use fishing as a bit of an escape. I think we all do. But for me, I'm very much a loner when it comes to fishing. I enjoy hearing all the sounds, seeing all the sights, just having the time to fully enjoy it. If you're fishing with someone else, you're yapping away, which is great as well, but that's a different type of relaxation. For me, the solitude is what I seek. Is that a bad answer?
No, it's a great answer.
Okay.
Do you ever fish in salt water?
Salt water, maybe 3 times. I fished a couple of times from a pier and did no good. And once I went off the beach in Phillip Island. We were staying at a cabin park and it had that beach access, and I wandered over and I was throwing around a metal slice, no idea what I was doing, and I managed to hook about a 45 centimetre snook, and then I hooked a flathead and it got off. Unfortunately, I made a rookie mistake of trying to lift its head out of the water, and apparently that is bad, but that's pretty much the extent of my ocean fishing knowledge and experience.
Well, how far are we from the sea here?
Here we're probably looking at about 2.5 hours drive, if you include the hustle and bustle of the city to get to the ocean.
Yeah.
Or I could take a detour around the city, but that'd be about the same length of time to get there, I think.
I understand why you fish mostly in the rivers.
Yes, yeah.
Speaking of which, I would think nothing when I was younger of driving from Adelaide to the bottom of the York Peninsula, which is 4 hours, at 3 o'clock in the morning, fish all day, and then drive home.
Wow.
Yeah, it's stupid, isn't it?
No, I think that's wonderful. I don't think that's stupid at all.
And it got more stupid as you get older because you tend to doze off on the way.
Yeah. There is that. It blows my mind how far Robbie goes every day.
Yeah.
You know, he'll go 200 k's that way one day and 400 k's that way another day. It blows my mind. Most of my fishing's in my backyard.
Yeah. It's obvious that nearly all the native fish that you catch go back in the water. What's important to you about catch and release?
I think if you make the choice as a fisherman that you're going to release a fish, probably treat it the best you can, and that's a lot of things. The major one I see is having fish out of the water too long. People just have it out too long. They'll take their photos, maybe too many photos, and the fish will swim away, but it's either feeling pretty sick or, sometimes you'll see them belly up going down the river.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest mistake catch and release people make. Other ones, depending on the size of the fish, supporting the stomach, keeping the fish moist if you can, out of direct sunlight, things like that are important if you are choosing to release a fish.
Well, in South Australia, it's actually an offence to lift a cod out of the water.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yep. Yeah.
We're even here during close season, they will allow you to take a quick
You've got to
snap.
get the hook out, haven't you?
Well, yeah.
That's right. What do you think will be the positive long-term effects of the floods that have been through Victoria?
I think we've seen it's a negative effect, but in terms of all fish, it's a positive effect. We've seen the explosion of carp numbers. Now, there is also going to be, it was a good breeding season for the natives as well, I would assume. They're harder to catch at the moment because there's a lot of food in there for them with all the baby carp. But I think in the coming months we're going to see some pretty big fat fish getting around big fat native fish. I think that's one positive sign, is they're spoiled for food choices at the moment. And they should have had a good breeding season as well, and hopefully they should be growing well with all the food in the water.
The effects of the flood in terms of the carp population explosion, how's that affected your fishing?
Mostly the type of spots I want to go to. A lot of the spots I fish in my videos on my channel are overrun with those baby carp at the moment, because I do enjoy fishing well oxygenated water, and that seems to be where they're hanging out. The slower sections of the water is where I'm focusing at the moment, where it's a little bit harder to get a fish, but at least I'm not catching 100 little carp.
Or 200.
Or 200, yes.
We've seen quite a few videos in recent times of you fishing with Robbie Alexander of Robbie Fishing. I would say, from watching the videos, that you are kindred spirits and get on very well. I reckon the sessions would be an absolute hoot. How did that come about?
Well, I had been watching Robbie since 2015 or whatever I mentioned earlier, and I was always commenting on his videos back then, but I started commenting from when I made my YouTube channel. I started commenting from my YouTube channel name instead, and said, oh hey, it's this person, because I was using a different name back then. Right. I'll be commenting from here now on because I'm making content, whatever. He said, oh, that's cool, and he came over and watched the videos and gave me a few pointers and stuff like that, and from there we just realised that we would both get along fairly well. I think I dropped a couple of hints in my videos about my lifestyle, and he's done the same, and we kind of figured we tick the same boxes in terms of the life we live. Yes. And we thought we'd get along, and we went to meet up at Greens Lake one day for a fish for redfin, and since then we've been best mates.
When you're fishing with Robbie, does it ever get competitive?
You stopped that, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
I did. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. So you're going to have to ask again. I thought I heard it. It is recording?
I'm not going to move too much. I might jostle the camera.
That's recording.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yep.
I'll just repeat the question if you like.
Okay, I'll repeat the question, shall I? You have to be honest with your answer to this one. When you and Robbie are fishing together, does it ever get competitive? I think I know what the answer is going to be, but...
Yes and no. Yeah. Yes, in terms of... I think we joked around a bit on one of the videos where it was more of a... We guessed how many we were. We'll catch 7 each or whatever, you know, and it turned out to be exactly that, or a couple more than that. It was competitive that day more in terms of the fish total as a team, so it wasn't... That's not competitive, is it? That's working together.
No, that's right. Team was the word, I think you used.
Team, yes, it's team effort. I wouldn't say competitive, but there's some days, like when I went fishing with him on the Goulburn, where he caught about 14 fish to my 1. Yes. There was a bit of jealousy. I wouldn't say competitiveness, I'd say a bit of jealousy sometimes.
Well, I just watched a video where he fished from the boat with his dad for cod, and I think he ended up with 4 and lost about 3, and his dad had 1 hit.
Oh, wow.
And I said in my comment to him, I bet you don't get another invite very quickly.
No.
As you well know, I hate bells on fishing rods.
You do?
Be honest, do you think taking time removing the bells when you get a bite actually costs you hookups?
Yes. I won't even hesitate. Yes, that does cost me fish and hookups. Yeah. It's a bit of a standoff with how many bites I would miss altogether, as opposed to the ones that I don't quite hook that I sort of notice the bite on. Going from experience, I do better with the bells, because I'll come back, or I have trouble focusing on it, because like I said, I enjoy the serenity of being out here, the sights, the sounds. A carp will jump down the river, I'll go for a wander up and watch the minnows swim around, so I'll miss quite a few bites if I don't have those bells on, and quite often I'll come back to a really slack line and no bait and just go, well, I should have had the bells.
Right. Okay, last question. This is a supplementary question.
Yes.
Do you think that your long experience with bells would give you an advantage in a job interview for a Santa position?
A Santa position? Well, I've got plenty of footage of the bells working, so... No,
you could...
I don't think so.
Well, I'm going to use your terminology now. Thank you very much for coming out to play today, Rohan.
Oh, no worries, Frank.
I appreciate your time, and hopefully this will give your followers a little bit more of an insight into RKJ Fishing.
No worries. Happy to be here.
Let's
Thanks,
go
Frank.
fishing.
Yeah, let's do that.